2. Okay, well, let's start. So welcome everybody to this afternoon's webinar on how to maximize the return on investment from your LinkedIn ads campaigns. We decided to put this together because we've been running a free audit called the LinkedIn Ads Power Hour. We've audited over 30 different accounts in the last 3 or 4 months, and we keep seeing the same issues time and again. And more broadly, there's a lot of interest in LinkedIn ads. And a lot of people are saying that they're spending a lot of money and not getting much from it. And so it feels like a good topic to discuss. And clearly from the numbers of people who have been subscribing and registering, there's some good appetite there. So what we're going to cover today is we'll set the scene, talk about those issues that we've seen in those audits and more broadly. Mark is then going to talk us through the top level strategy that we need to generate ROI. The strategy is nothing without the creative, and so George is going to spend 10-15 minutes or so talking about the creative, and then we're going to finish with some setup tips. We've got 8 tips to run through, and that whole package should take you a long way. A few housekeeping bits. We are recording this, as you might be able to see, and the recording will be shared with you straight after the webinar finishes. If you want the slides, just email me and I will happily share them with you. Questions, we've got a questions tab there alongside the chat. We've got a lot of content to get through, so my intention is that we go through the slides. It's going to take us about half an hour, and then that should leave us with 10 to 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A. That said, I will be keeping an eye on the questions, and if there's a burning issue that keeps coming up, we'll raise it there and then. Last thing, looking at the people who are attending, it's mostly marketers. If there are a few founders who have registered. If it becomes too marketing jargony, pop a question in there and I will try to answer it as we go. Okay, let's get into it then. Well, no, one slide before that. Who are we and why should you listen to us? We are the 3 co-founders of Winbox. Winbox is a marketing agency based in Bristol, UK. And we work with SaaS companies, and we work with their CMOs and their heads of growth to generate qualified opportunities through ads and landing pages, and we support them with our creative studio. It's a done-for-you service that we offer. I'm Tom. I'm one of the co-founders, as I mentioned, and my role is primarily sales and now webinar host. Hey. So you'll be hearing very little from me and much more from Mark and George, and I will ask them to introduce themselves now, starting with Mark.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name's Mark Woodland, and I'm the paid media director at Winbox. I've done all sorts of marketing over the years, but for the past couple of years, I've been mainly focused on paid ads and more specifically LinkedIn ads. I overlook all of the LinkedIn ads campaigns for our clients, so I've seen firsthand what works and what doesn't work, so I can pass on some hints and tips to you today.
Sure, and I am George, creative director here at Winbox. Been writing copy and making content for about 12 years now. First half of my career was spent doing B2C stuff. Wrote copy for Adidas, Tesco, Heinz, NatWest, Citibank, Aviva, all kinds of brands. And I spent the last 6 years of my career focused purely on tech and B2B SaaS. And as Tom said, I'm here to talk about the creative side of things in this, and that's mostly what I'm involved in day to day here at Winbox as well.
Lovely, great stuff. Okay, so let's set the scene then. What are the issues, the 5 key issues that seem to be draining any chance of a return on investment from LinkedIn ads that we saw in those audits? It's these 5. These are the 5 biggies. Only running gated content. It's content leads rarely become qualified opportunities. Only running book a demo or bottom of the funnel sales, speak to sales ads, and no retargeting in place is a funnel issue. Mark will talk about that shortly. Driving traffic to random web pages. You'd be amazed at where some people are spending money to send prospects to. And finally, not having, or I should say, having company-centric creative. That is the opposite of what we want. We would very much like customer-centric creative. So how do we get ROI for our clients? What's the strategy? Well, we have a full funnel strategy. We have retargeting in place. We're going to bash you over the head about retargeting. Retargeting, very important. there's going to be some of you on the call who think, why on earth would you run a campaign without retargeting? But again, you'd be amazed at how few are and how few have it set up correctly. High quality creative make strategy work, and George will talk to us about that. And having a proper ad set up is the bit that ties a bow on it all. Speaking of tying a bow on it, Mark, can you talk to us about strategy, please?
I can, thank you, Tom. So yeah, with any marketing channel, where you want to start is getting the strategic approach right. And as Tom said, the way to maximize your ROI from LinkedIn ads is to have a full funnel approach when it comes to your LinkedIn ads. And I'll talk you through what we mean by that now. So we visualize the full funnel as the different stages of awareness that people go on their buying journey. This is an age-old marketing model, so you might already be aware of this, but I'll just recap and run through each stage. So in the buying journey, people are either problem aware, so they're aware they've got a problem, but they're not aware of a solution, or they're solution aware, they're aware of a solution, but they're not aware of yours, or they're vendor aware, they're aware of yours, but they're not sure if it's right for them, or they're most aware, they're kind of ready to go, they just need that final push over the edge or the reminder to book a demo. So we have in our LinkedIn ad strategy, and what we recommend is we have a campaign within Campaign Manager for each of these different stages of awareness. And here are the ads that sit within those different stages of awareness. So where most people go wrong is they just run ads, as Tom said, at the bottom of the funnel, just call to action ads to book a demo. Now, there's three main issues with that. One is that at any one time, only 5% of your market in B2B is going to be in market and ready to buy. The other 95% of your audience is not quite ready yet. So what that means is that this is the most competitive space to be. Everyone is trying to advertise here, so it ends up being the most expensive place, and your cost per click is very high, your cost per inquiry is very high, and you are ignoring the vast majority of your audience by only going after the 5% at the bottom of the funnel. What we also often see is that people run these call to action ads to a cold audience, and in B2B, every purchase is considered, every purchase is complex because it will require some change within the organization. So people will rarely convert from a cold ad. They rarely convert from the first time they see an ad. That's why retargeting is so important. It takes multiple touch points, and it takes time for them to get to the point where they're in market, they trust you, they like you, and they're ready to go. So for people who are in the problem aware stage, we run pain point ads. And these are ads that elaborate on the pain that they'll be experiencing and starts to introduce your features and benefits of your solution and your offer. For people who are solution aware, we have ads, we have benefit ads, and this is the gains that they're going to get from using your solution. What's the world going to be like after they start working with you, and how do you make that happen? And then we have social proof ads for the vendor aware stage of awareness. We tend to find that these are the most effective ads. These get the highest click-through rate and the most conversions. The reason for that is because people need to trust you and know that you can back up what you say you can do before they'd engage with you. So these social proof ads are testimonials, case studies, logos for existing clients. It's the things that, back up that you can do what you say you're going to do. And then finally, you've got your call to action ads, which is straight to the point, trying to get people who've engaged with you previously and you think are in market and a high intent to book a demo. And here are the audiences that these ads go to. So at the top of the funnel for your problem aware, you just want your ads to go to a cold audience, because the purpose here is for awareness and to build your retargeting audiences. You're not going to get conversions at this point, so good to just go out to the wider market. And then you see we start to introduce these retargeting audiences when we have ads that we think can get more conversions. And then at the bottom of the funnel, these most aware ads, you just want to be sending these ads to your retargeting audience, because as I said previously, people will rarely convert. And by conversion, I don't mean downloading a content guide, which will be a low intent lead. I mean, genuine opportunities, genuine sales opportunities, people booking a demo. You only want them to go to your retargeted audience, because we don't want to waste budget by sending call to action ads to a cold audience. So just to kind of recap on what you're looking to achieve throughout these different ads, is towards the top of the funnel, it's about awareness and it's about building retargeting audiences. And then more towards the bottom of the funnel, that's where you're going to get your conversions. And more specifically, and I can't stress this enough, you'll get your conversions from your retargeting audiences. So we've said retargeting audiences a lot. Who makes up your retargeting audiences? I'll run through that now. So you want to build an audience from ad interactions, people who have engaged with your ad, because that's an indication of intent. From people who viewed videos, if you're running video ads, we tend to create an audience of people who have viewed your video more than 50%, but that's dependent on the length of your video. People who visited your website, there's a reason why they've gone to your website. They've got a certain level of interest. Your ad filters within LinkedIn to make sure you're targeting still relevant people, because all sorts of people could go to your website. But if you've been to your website, you definitely want to keep them coming back to your brand and hitting them with more messages to get them to that point of conversion. Google Ads traffic, and this is a really important one, because we tend to find that the traffic that goes to your website through Google Ads is high intent. There's a reason why they've searched for those search phrases to get to your website. So say that only 10% of those visits convert on your landing page. We absolutely want to be retargeting to the other 90% of that high intent audience across multiple channels, including LinkedIn. So that's a really important one and can be a good tactic to get some nice conversions from LinkedIn ads. People who follow your company page, people who have attended events, they're both good indicators that they're in market or that they're interested in your offer. So you want to be hitting them with your ads. And prospect lists. So these are customer lists that you can upload. That might be newsletter subscribers. That might be sales target lists that you're going after. That might be lapsed customers. Anyone who you think could potentially be customers in the future that you have on your list, you can upload them as custom audiences. So just to recap, the strategic approach that you want to go for to maximize ROI for LinkedIn ads is target the full funnel, your whole audience, and build and use your retargeting audience for conversions. That's me done on the strategy. So over to you, George.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. I'm just going to, there we go, do a heart face emoji for the start of the creative bit. I'm sure I can do that for my own section. Cool. So as the slide suggests, now we're going to talk about the creative. Obviously, the, oh, it looks like Pete's lost sound. Is everyone else getting that as well? Okay. We'll keep going. Sorry, Pete. I'm sure it will fix itself soon. Cool. So no matter what we're making or who we're making it for, right, the first step is you need to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. You need to see things the way that they see things. So let's start by just asking, why do people use LinkedIn? So I reckon there are 3 reasons that most people are on LinkedIn. Marketing stuff, by which I mean maybe they're posting content, maybe they're interacting with people, maybe they're doing audience research. Sales stuff, maybe they're building lead lists, maybe they're doing prospecting, maybe they're doing outreach. And then finally, just kind of wasting or killing time between meetings, right? They're just hanging out, seeing what the chat's like, seeing what's new. Now, I'm glad you like the disclaimer. What's missing from this, right? What's missing from these 3 things? The big one, right? Clicking on ads, checking out ads. Like no one except apart from myself is going on LinkedIn to check out ads. And that sounds like a bad thing, right? That sounds like a bad thing, but really it's a good thing, because once we really kind of get to grips with and embrace the complete and utter indifference of everyone apart from ourselves for the ads that we create, it's kind of obvious then what we need to do, right? Is we need to overcome that indifference, and we need to accept that they don't care and take on the challenge of making them care. And that's what the creative is for. I'm getting a sad face emoji. I feel it too. So how do we make people care, right? How do we create high converting ads? We get their attention, we make them feel something, and I'm going to talk about that a lot, and then we get them to do something. So I think B2B marketers, typically, we're very comfortable with 1 and 3. Everyone gets that. We sometimes struggle with 2. And when I look at B2B ads and when we're all, most often, the big thing that I notice is that the ads have no like emotional content. There's no emotional dimension to what is being said. And that's a problem, because emotion always precedes action, right? People only do something after they feel something. And I imagine there's kind of quite a lot of people out there where they struggle to tease out the emotion and get their head into it. So I've popped an example of an ad that I was working on earlier today. as it happens, just as an example of like every product, even if it feels a bit dry, and in this product, this is enterprise resource planning software, which is basically warehouse management software for drinks wholesalers. So it's slightly dry, slightly niche, right? But when we spoke to the customers, Gainer's customers, this is one of our clients, they're an awesome client. We spoke to their customers. It was really interesting because they were frustrated and they were anxious, and they felt like they were making snap decisions that were really important. And what we heard from them was that the way wholesale works is you buy in goods at a variable price and you sell them at a variable price. And the difference between those things is essentially your margin, and that's what it's all about. But if you don't have accurate data for this bit and this bit, you're winging it, right? You don't know if you're making the right decision. And so suddenly there's loads of emotion there to play with. You can play with anxiety. You can play with imposter syndrome. You can play with the sense that you're winging it, and people are going to find that out. And so we've got creative like this. Stop winging it. Get wholesale data you can trust. And that's what I really encourage everyone who's watching this to do, is to think emotionally about like what's the feeling that you're expressing or tapping into, because it's that's going to generate like that click-through rate and get people to act. So what I'm going to do now with the rest of my time is I'm going to talk you through the process that we follow to come up with high converting creative. And that process starts with messaging. I'm always saying to clients, good marketing starts with good messaging. And if you haven't already got a messaging framework, steal this one. We're going to share these slides with you. This is really simple. The slide is fairly self-explanatory. I'm not going to talk you through each step of it in the abstract. I'm going to give you an example because I feel like that's probably the fastest way to understand this. And the example I'm going to use is Canva, because I feel like everyone has heard of Canva and knows what it does. So what category of products does Canva belong to? It's a design tool. What's the audience segment? It's non-designers. What's the pain point that those people have with design tools? Photoshop and Illustrator and Figma are too complex and too expensive. So the feature that Canva delivers is a massively simplified user interface and tool set. The capability is I can now do my own design work, and the benefit is I'm going to save a load of money on freelance designers. The proof points, I'm not sure Canva really need proof points in the same way, because I think they've got like 500 million active users a month or something like that. But the CTA that they use, and this is a really smart CTA, is it's free to use, but if you want to export it, you have to sign up for a paid license. So you've just seen how I kind of walk through each of these step by step. And I really encourage you, if you've never done that kind of process before, do this before you start trying to write ads, because you need to work out what you want to say before you start trying to figure out what you want to say. And final note on messaging, this is a thinking exercise and not a writing exercise. So this is not the place for like clever wordplay and puns and metaphors and all that stuff. This is the place for plain English. Just get it down in the simplest, most concise way possible. And you can do the creative stuff a bit later on. So once you've done your messaging, you've worked out what you want to say, you're ready to start thinking about the actual creative, right? How are we going to get that in front of people? Social ads come in all different shapes and sizes and formats. And, you know, we're all familiar with all the different things that you can buy through LinkedIn's campaign manager. But successful social ads share some common characteristics. So here's three things to bear in mind. They're super simple, right? Every social ad is a mobile ad. And we should always think mobile first about the creative, because, you know, when you're there with your designer and they've got a massive monitor or they've got an iMac or something like that, the ad's going to look great because it's going to be huge and it's on a really high res screen, and all of that kind of intricate shading and those gradients is going to look really nice. But when you run that as an ad, LinkedIn's going to make it 800 by 800 and it's going to compress the snot out of it, right? So that it can be shown to people with very poor internet. So it's going to be tiny and it's all going to become a bit grainy and pixelated. So you need to keep it super simple to make sure that it looks awesome on tiny screens with low pixel rate. They tend to be very concise. So I always say for our copywriting team and myself, 4 to 10 words max. And you really just want a nice short headline, maybe a short subhead as well, but really a short, punchy headline, 4 to 10 words. That should be everything that you're trying to say. And finally, they're really specific, right? Because you don't have a lot of space to work with. And you're not going to be able to cram too many things in there. So I like to target just one pain point, benefit, or proof point per ad. And I think that that's a good way to kind of focus in. So that's the 3 characteristics of high converting creative, right? And this is a good example of what high converting creative looks like. Here is what it doesn't look like, right? We've all seen ads like this. Maybe we've even run a few ads like this. I know that I have in the past. This stuff does not perform. You honestly be better off, I think, just having a grey background with type just laid over it, because it doesn't make people feel anything. You know, I said earlier, you've got to make people feel something. This kind of imagery, it means nothing. It says nothing. It makes us feel nothing. And I actually think it harms your conversion rate, right? Because people get stuck. And I feel something a little sick. I like it, Emma. Yeah, because people see it and they just switch off. It just turns them off straight away. So honestly, if you're running stuff like this, your conversion rate will be drastically improved by dropping it and just running like big, bold text ads in your brand colors. That works much better and is actually much easier to create. So this final part of it, I'm going to give you a load of examples. This is going to be quick fire. I'm going to kind of rifle through them pretty fast, but I'm going to give you a load of examples of really decent ads that I think are cool and interesting and creative, all B2B brands. And along with each of them, a prompt, right? And hopefully, as I said, you're going to get these slides, and hopefully this will give you loads of ideas, like thought starters that you can use to create similar creative for your own brands. And I'm going to map it to the stages of awareness that Mark talked about earlier. So we're going to start right at the top of his funnel with pain points. So 3 ways to turn your pain points into interesting creative. So first off, just visualize the pain and do it in like an over-the-top way, right? If you're going to pick a visual metaphor, it almost has to be a bit ridiculous. So this huge stack of paper kind of gets the point across. This middle one, we do this all the time. This is an awesome format, and this is probably one of the easiest ones to do, which is before and after. Before the product, pain points. After the product, benefits. I reckon every product should just be running one of these ads as standard, because they instantly communicate how you help. And then the final one, ask a question. So just turn your pain point into a question. Are you struggling with this thing? We can help. And these guys, Go Cardless, have done a really good job of kind of attaching a bit of a creative spin. So you've got, you're making basically sound like you're doing it the old way. There's a new and much better way. Now onto the benefits. Again, 3 quick fire prompts. So one of the best ways to express your benefit is to attach it to a number. So quantify the benefit. MailChimp do a great job of this. And especially this one is particularly good because they're talking about ROI, which is like the ultimate benefit, right? That's what people really want. In the middle, tell them why the benefit matters. So it's not always clear to customers why they need that thing. And this is a great ad because of that little bit in bright yellow at the bottom. They are 3 times more likely to buy again. That bit seals the deal. It just instantly elevates the ad. And then over here on the right, how simple can you make the pitch, right? If you had to boil it down to 3 or 4 words, like what would those words be? And I find this to be a really interesting exercise. A thing to bear in mind with this, Lavender can't guarantee that everyone that signs up is going to double their reply rates. But they've gone with the headline anyway. And I actually think that's a good thing, because at a certain level, you do have to kind of work with the truth in order to create really punchy creative. And so I think, that's okay, as long as it's still within the realms of possibility, right? And you're not outright lying. And then proof point ads. Mark mentioned this. These ads are awesome, right? These are like where so many of our conversions come from. They're typically really high performing. So if you're not already running them, the first lesson is definitely do. And here's a few ways to do it really well. So first off, if you're going to have a quote or a testimonial from someone, it should never be like, these guys are great, or like highly recommended, or something like that. You need to use your testimonials to back up your benefits. So whatever your benefits are, your testimonials should be proving them out. because then it's all tying together. And so, you can see this one. We increased pipeline by 60% in 3 months. That's a really powerful, that's a stat and a testimonial in one. So that's like, bonus points for them. In the middle here, they're showing the before and after in a testimonial. A week after translating our site, international sales doubled. So use your customers to tell the story, right? To show the before point and the after point. Finally, make it feel authentic. This is really important. So a lot of customer testimonials you see, they're in like this kind of weird robot tone of voice, right? It's like corporate jargon, business speak. And that means that the person just doesn't feel real. And that's the whole point of this type of ad, right? Is it's real people and you're helping them. And I thought this from Cognizant was really good. This particular line, I love the ability to create lead lists and export to CSV. That just sounds like a real person. And I'm sure that all of their users would love to be able to do that too. So make it feel genuine. Don't make it feel kind of weird business speak. So just to wrap up, because I've hit you with a whole load of information. So here's some stuff to take away with if you don't remember anything else. Make people feel something. That is the goal of the ads. Emotion precedes action. Make people feel something. This wheel over here on the right, I look at this all the time when I'm writing ads, and I'll ask myself as I'm doing it, where am I trying to locate this ad in this wheel? And if it doesn't fit into any of those segments, it's a bad ad and it's not heading in the right direction because it has no emotional dimension. After that, keep it simple. Make it super simple. Keep making it simpler until it can't get any simpler. And then it will work. And finally, avoid cliche, because it not only is just kind of boring and dull, but it negatively impacts conversion rates because people tune it out. And I believe that's the end of my section. There we go.
Cool. Thank you, George. So now we've talked through the strategic approach that you need in place to maximize your ROI from LinkedIn ads. George has talked you through the creative approach. Now I'll talk you through the execution and my 8 targeting tips when setting up your campaigns. So number 1 is to match your audience size to your budget. What we tend to see when we look into people's ads campaigns is that the audience can either be massively too big, so in the millions. And the problem with that is the frequency that people see your ads is going to be so low that they're not going to see it enough times to kind of recall your brand and take any action. I'll talk more about frequency a bit later on. Or the size of the audience is far too small, which means that the frequency that they see your ads is far too high and they get ad burnout really quickly and they end up blinking your ads. So that we tend to find for a cold campaign, the sweet spot is typically between 50 to 150,000. Maybe start to the higher end of this if you're just starting a campaign so that you can learn from the demographic insights and refine your audience as you go through and improve your campaign. Next up, disable audience expansion with when setting up your campaign. So this is enabled by default on LinkedIn. The problem with it is, unfortunately, the lookalike builder within LinkedIn isn't very sophisticated. It's not very good. So if you have this enabled, what tends to happen is that you'll be showing your ads to people that aren't relevant and are not your target audience for a solution. So best to disable that. Next up is limit the use of the LinkedIn audience network to about 10% of your budget. So the LinkedIn audience network on LAN is basically a list of third-party publishers where LinkedIn can place your ad rather than on LinkedIn if you have this enabled. Again, this is enabled as default by LinkedIn. The problem with it is it's a bit of the Wild West. And if you have it enabled, it will eat up about 70% plus of your budget. So that means 70% of your spend, the ads aren't actually being shown on LinkedIn. They're being shown on random websites across the web. What we have found is that you get loads of clicks, you get a really high click-through rate, you feel really good about that, but the quality of the traffic is really low. You'll get a high bounce rate on your landing page and you won't get any conversions. It's a good idea, it's a good feature in concept, so worth using it, because if your audience isn't active on LinkedIn, you could kind of show your ad across the web, but proceed with caution and just limit it to about 10% of your budget so that most of your ads are being shown on LinkedIn where they intended to be. Next up, and this is just a quick, easy tip, exclude people who you don't want to see your ads, who aren't going to be prospects, so you don't waste money showing them ads and them engaging with it. So you can upload custom lists of your competitors, your customers, and also select not to show the ad to people at your own company, just so that you're protecting your budget as much as you can. You should be, when you're running your ads, studying the demographic insights on a regular basis, so you can learn from them and refine your audience setup. So I'll be going into the demographic insights. I'll be looking at the top engaging locations, the top engaging seniorities, the top engaging job titles, job functions, and I'll be using all of that information to either add exclusions to my campaigns if I'm finding that people aren't relevant to my offer, are being shown the ads, or to refine my targeting so that I can show the ad more so to people who I know are engaging as a good demographic, so I'm going to get the most of my budget. Next up, and I mentioned this earlier about ad frequency, this is really important to measure because your ad can succeed or fail by it. We typically find that the sweet spot for frequency is you want to show people your ad 4 to 8 times over a period of 30 days. So frequency is how many times your audience is going to see your ad over, you can set it to a 7, 30 or 90-day period. So over 30 days, you want them to see your ad kind of 4 to 8 times. If it's too high, like I mentioned earlier, they get ad burnout and they're quickly blinking your ads and they won't be effective, or the effectiveness will drop off. If they're too low, then they're not going to see your ad enough to take action. They won't have brand recall, and it won't be enough touch points for them to get to that conversion, which you want. So yeah, that sweet spot is between 4 to 8. Next up, track conversions as far down the funnel as possible. So you're here because you want to learn how to maximize ROI from your ads. So what you're after is qualified opportunities, people booking demos, people booking sales meetings. It's really important that we track which of our ads and how many of them that we are generating. One, so we can report to internal stakeholders of the success of our campaign, but also so that we can optimize for the right metrics. And an example of this is ad A might have a click-through rate of 0.8%, which is really good. Ad B might have a click-through rate of 0.4%, which is benchmark. So just looking at those metrics, you'll think that ad A is performing better. So let's pause ad B and just throw our budget behind ad A. However, if you're tracking conversions properly, you might see that ad B has a lower click-through rate, but it's actually generating more conversions. So you absolutely want to be throwing more budget behind that ad because you want to be optimizing for the right metric, which is the money in the bank, the ROI coming through. And then finally, it's that manual bidding typically leads to a lower cost per click. So as default within LinkedIn, this is selected. So the bidding strategy is maximum delivery. Essentially, what this means is that you give LinkedIn the reins to bid whatever they like within your daily budget or your lifetime budget for a click. Unfortunately, LinkedIn is motivated to make them more money rather than you. So you could end up spending more than you need to for your clicks and having a high cost per click. So what I do is I select manual bidding. I will type in a low amount as my manual bid to find the floor. And what will come up is this red warning message here to say that your bid may be too low. So I'll increase it to say £1.50, then to £2 until this warning disappears. Then I know that's my floor. And then I'll be monitoring the daily spend on a regular basis to kind of judge whether that's the right amount. So if I find that my daily budget is being used up by lunchtime, I know that I'm probably bidding too high, so I can reduce that. If I find that I'm getting to the end of the day and my daily budget isn't being spent, I'm probably bidding too low, so I need to increase that. So just to recap on these 8 targets and tips: match your audience size to budget. Don't use audience expansion, disable that. Limit the use of the LinkedIn audience network and proceed with caution. Exclude your employees, customers, and competitors from your campaigns. Learn regularly from your demographic insights. Monitor the ad frequency. Track conversions as low down the funnel as possible, and use manual bidding to reduce your cost per click. That's the execution part. Back over to you, Tom.
Brilliant, thank you, Mark. So there we go. We've gone a little bit over time as I wanted to on the content. We've got about 10 minutes for questions. So add them into the chat or use the question function if you've got any questions. But just a quick recap before we move on. How do we get a return on investment from LinkedIn ads? We do it by using a full funnel approach. We don't just do lead gen. We don't just do brand awareness. We use the whole of LinkedIn ads for that. We make sure that we've got retargeting set up correctly. We make sure that we make people feel something, and we get the technical setup just right. If we get those 4 things sorted, we will be well on our way. Last ask before we go to questions. We are still doing the LinkedIn Ads Power Hours that I mentioned at the top, and I will in a second share a link through to that. They're totally free. There's no obligation. They work best for accounts where you've been spending at least £1,000 or $1,000 per month, because then we have some data to review and go through. They take about an hour, and they have been very well received. So, any questions? There's no questions that have popped up as I've been talking. We've been talking. There's a few people typing. Emma's got a question here. Is the approach the same whether it's brand or product ads? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I have a point of view on the, I suppose, part of it. From a creative standpoint, I always think that you have product ads and you have brand ads. I think that it's worth defining that for everyone on the call, just so it's clear. Yeah, product ads, when we do them, they tend to be more focused on features, capabilities, and benefits, whereas brand ads would be like brand level messaging, or like often like the pain points. That's the whole kind of thing about the full funnel approach, I suppose, is that by doing it full funnel, they're not separate pots. Like that campaign will reflect the brand and the product messaging. So yeah, when we run them, we just run them all as one campaign typically. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, the essence of the kind of full funnel approach is that you can run one big campaign and it covers everything that you need it to do.
Brilliant. Thank you, George. Emma says, thanks. I've just shared a link through to the Power Hour, which should have popped up on your screen. We've got a question here from Farhat. I can't really see my frequency and campaign for any of our ads. What might be the reason? That's one for you, Mark.
Yeah.
So I had to get rid of your call to action to unmute my mic. So
Annoying
the way that you see it, which you probably already know, is on the breakdown, rather than performance, select delivery, and then it should come up as a metric. If you're not seeing it, the most likely reason is that the timeline that you're using for your stats is too long, because you could only do it up to 90 days, I think it is. So just look at the time scale you're looking at, the time bracket you're looking at for the frequency. Or it might be that you don't have enough data yet in order to show frequency. Those are the 2 most common reasons. So yeah, hopefully that sorts it for you.
Perfect. There we go. Lovely. Okay, that seems to have answered the question. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat here. How are we doing for time? We've got about 5 minutes left. I've got a couple of questions. One was around the creative. George, what would you say has a bigger impact on conversion rates? Is it the copy or is it the design?
Yeah, that's a great question. People get so sidetracked by the design. Some of the best converting ads that we've ever run and I'm not exaggerating here, were literally headlined with really high contrast against the background and a button. And they were made in minutes. And those ads work so well. So to answer the original question, 100% the copy, always the copy. The copy is like it. That is what gets people to kind of think and feel anything. The design kind of adds context and it maybe like catches the eye. But if you were going to pour your time into one or the other, pour a lot more time into the copy. And also, if the copy is strong enough, you can run just a headline with a button. I often think that if you're spending loads of time messing around with the visuals, it's probably because the copy's not all there. So yeah, copy all day long. It's quicker to make. It has way more impact. If in doubt, just run a big old headline with a button under it in your brand guidelines, assuming you can do that in a way that looks good. And those ads convert really, really well, and they're really low effort.
Perfect. Question from Erin in a similar vein. Do you find static or video ads work better for B2B clients?
I think we'll both have a perspective on this. I don't mind hopping in first, Mark, and then you go after, or do you want to go first?
That's right, you go.
Yeah, depends on the goal, is our experience. I imagine, Mark, you might be about to say the same thing. But if your goal is to drive traffic, static ads, because video, and if your goal is to get awareness and tell a slightly longer story, video ads can be really good for that. And you just set a different objective for the ad, which is video views instead of like clicks and traffic. But we often see people make life really hard for themselves because they'll say, we need some traffic from LinkedIn, and they'll go and create a video for the purposes of running it as an ad to drive traffic, when they could have just made a single image and it would do what they needed to do way better. So if your goal is drive traffic, static images, keep it really simple, make them square, not landscape for mobile users. If your goal is awareness, by all means run a video. The first 3 seconds of that video need to be super interesting though, because if it's boring, no one's even going to watch past that. So yeah, video, you need to work really hard on what's called retention, which is keeping people watching. That would be my advice on that.
Yeah, and exactly what you said, George. The only thing I would add to that is that why I really like video ads is they can build your retargeting audiences really quickly. Because as I mentioned earlier, you can set up an audience by the percentage that they've watched the video, 25%, 50%, 70%, or to completion. So you're going to get a lower click-through rate through it, but hopefully people will be watching it. That's good for awareness and also for building those all-important retargeting audiences where you're going to get your conversions from, and you can then hit them with ads further down the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Got an interesting question here from Furkan. So what would be your approach with document and lead gen ads? So this is something where we have a lot to say here, because the first version of our company was literally gated content lead gen ads. And that was what we did all day, every day. And tell you what, we got really good at it. We could get a lot of conversions from lead gen form ads. We'd write reports, we'd gate them, we'd get tons of email addresses, and then very few of those would progress to qualified opportunities, to the extent that we basically pivoted the whole company away from gated content and lead gen ads and towards now, when we have content, we just ungate it completely and we retarget the people that check it out with other ads, further down the funnel, like Mark was talking about. And we've found that, you're not getting their email address, but the sum total of the campaign, it has so much more impact. And when we made that change, the difference in our reporting was we went from reporting on the number of email addresses we generated to reporting on the number of demos we generated, which I think tells you everything you need to know about the different results that you get. So our current approach is if you have content, that's awesome. And we'd always ungate it and then retarget the people that show interest.
Great. Thanks, George. Okay, I think we've got time for one last question. Firas asks, how would you guys allocate a budget in terms of distribution for different funnels? That's a question for Mark.
Yeah, it's going to be an annoying answer if it depends, but it depends on your budget, and it also depends on where you're at with your wider marketing ecosystem. I think the first thing to consider in terms of how you allocate your budget is how much you want to put to the cold audience and how much you want to put to the retargeted audience. Ideally, you want to be putting a majority of your budget, say 70%, to your retargeted audience, but that requires having a retargeted audiences of a sufficient size. So if you have healthy traffic going to your website and you can retarget to that audience, put more budget there and have most of your budget going to retargeting, because that's where you're going to get most of your conversions. And then in terms of the different campaigns, what budget you have depends on how you can split it up, because if it's a low budget, you need to make sure you hit the daily spend of I think it's £9 for each campaign. So it depends on your strategy and where you're at with your overall marketing, really. But that's the big thing to consider, is how much to retargeting and how much to cold.
Great, thank you. Andy snuck in with a bonus question, and this really will have to be the last one. What is the right size, or sufficient size, for a retargeting pot?
So an audience is usable once there's over 300 members, according to LinkedIn. A sufficient size really is above 1,000. Anything under that becomes really difficult. So once you get above there, then great. And I would say that if you're getting more than 1,000 visits to your website each month that you can then retarget, then that's a pretty good starting point to be able to layer in retargeting quite quickly.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Andy's typing. A winking emoji. Very nice.
I don't have the wink emoji. Why can't
Well, no, Andy's gone next level. He's leveled up his game here. I'm loving all these emojis, guys. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you, George and Mark. We'll email out the videos. If you want the slides, please do email me. I can send them through. That won't happen automatically. And we will be back in the autumn with a few more webinars. So keep an eye on your emails. Thanks once again. Have good evenings, one and all.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.